The war between the great alien empires had gone on for decades, spreading across the stars like fire on dry grass. Fleets rose and fell, worlds were conquered and lost again, and countless races bowed before the throne of the Zilari Empire, a race so powerful and ancient that even the mention of their queen's name made soldiers tremble. Her name was Queen Sarathra, the silver-eyed ruler of 1,000 worlds. Her word was law and her will was sharper than any blade. But that day, inside the grand hall of the celestial throne, something happened that no one could have predicted. The hall was vast, filled with alien nobles from dozens of species. Their armor gleamed like metal suns, their faces unreadable, their voices hushed as the queen entered. She walked with calm grace, her gown flowing like liquid starlight, her crown pulsing faintly with energy drawn from the very heart of her planet. No one dared to speak as she ascended the dais. Behind her stood the Imperial Guard, motionless as statues, and beside them, chained, battered, but standing tall, was a human. His name was Captain Elias Kane. Once a pilot in the Human Defense Fleet, he had been captured months ago during a border conflict near the Rim systems. His ship had gone down after a desperate chase, and he had refused to give up even when surrounded. Now he stood before the alien court, a prisoner of the Empire accused of destroying one of their scout vessels and killing several soldiers. The alien nobles glared at him with disgust. To them, humans were weak creatures from a backwater planet, loud, impulsive, and far too confident for their size. Most thought he would be executed on the spot, a mere insect crushed beneath the Queen's command. But Queen Sarathra looked at him differently. As she studied the human, her eyes softened slightly, though only for a moment. He was bruised, covered in dust, and his uniform was torn. But there was something unbroken in his stance. His gaze met hers directly, steady, fearless, and proud. No one had ever looked at the Queen of the Zilari like that. "You stand accused of violating Imperial space," the herald announced, his voice echoing through the hall. "You attacked a Zilari vessel and resisted capture. By law, you should be executed." Elias didn't bow. "I didn't attack. Your patrol fired first." His voice was rough but calm. Gasps rippled through the chamber, an alien prisoner speaking out in front of the Queen. Unthinkable. Sarathra tilted her head slightly. "You claim innocence?" "I claim truth," Elias replied. "My orders were to investigate strange signals near the border. Your ships fired without warning. I defended myself and my crew." The alien nobles began to murmur angrily. One of the generals stepped forward. "My queen, the human lies. Their kind always lies. They are impulsive creatures, savage and deceitful." Sarathra raised her hand and silence fell instantly. She continued to watch Elias, her silver eyes unreadable. "Tell me, human," she said softly, "why did you not surrender? Your ship was outnumbered 100 to 1. Elias's jaw tightened. "Because surrender means trusting someone else to do the right thing." "I didn't trust your men." A faint smile ghosted across her lips, so faint that no one was sure if they had imagined it. The general growled. "He insults you, my queen. Allow me to remove his tongue." Sarathra's gaze flicked toward the general, cold and sharp. "You forget yourself, General. I decide what words are worth keeping." The general instantly fell silent, bowing low. She rose from her throne and descended the steps, the soft hum of her gown's energy fabric echoing faintly. Every alien in the hall lowered their head as she approached the prisoner. Elias stood still, his eyes following her every move. When she stopped before him, the room seemed to shrink until only the two of them existed. "You are not afraid of me," she said quietly. "Should I be?" he asked. The guard stiffened at his tone, but she did not react. Instead, she studied his face for a long moment. "Most beings tremble when I stand before them. They kneel, they beg. But you look at me as if I am ordinary." "I've seen enough war to know no one is ordinary," Elias said. Her expression shifted, not anger, not amusement, but something else entirely. Something curious, maybe even human. She turned to the council. "The human claims he acted in defense. I have seen enough death to know truth sometimes hides beneath pride." The nobles began to whisper again, uneasy. "Your Majesty," one of them said, "if you let him live, you show weakness. The other empires will see it as mercy, and mercy invites rebellion." Sarathra's voice cut through their words like lightning. "Mercy is not weakness. It is choice." She looked at Elias once more. This man fought for his people. He showed courage even when surrounded by my armies. He spoke truth even when facing death. She paused, her tone steady but carrying strange warmth. And courage even in an enemy deserves recognition. The hall fell silent, and then she said the words that would echo across the galaxy for generations. That human is mine. Her voice carried power like thunder, shaking the crystal pillars of the hall. Every noble froze. Even the guards faltered. The words weren't spoken with affection. They were law, declaration, command. He will not be executed, she continued. He will remain under my personal protection. Anyone who harms him will answer to me. The court erupted in outrage. Cries of protest filled the air. Your Majesty, he is a danger. A human cannot be trusted. This will cause war. Sarathra turned, her gaze sweeping the room. Let it, she said coldly. If the galaxy wishes to question my judgment, then let them. They will remember what happens to those who defy their queen. She motioned to the guards. Release him. The chains around Elias clicked open and fell to the floor. He rubbed his wrist slowly, confusion flickering in his eyes. Why? He asked softly. Why spare me? Sarathra looked at him for a long moment. Because you remind me of something my people lost long ago, she said quietly. Something I wish to understand again. She turned to leave, her gown flowing behind her like a river of light. The guard stepped back in awe, unsure what had just unfolded. Elias stood alone in the center of the great hall, every eye fixed on him. He didn't know it yet. But that single moment, those 5 words, had changed the fate of worlds. Across the galaxy, news spread within hours. The alien queen had claimed a human as her own. Entire councils panicked. Generals argued. Alliances trembled. On distant planets, fleets went on high alert, preparing for what many feared would be the beginning of a new war. Some said the queen had gone mad. Others whispered that she had seen something in the human that no one else could. And somewhere deep inside her throne ship, Sarathra stood before the stars, lost in thought. For the first time in centuries, the Queen of the Zalari felt uncertainty, not fear but curiosity. The human had looked at her as an equal, not a god, and that defiance, that strange spark, stirred something she had almost forgotten. Far below, in the quarters where he had been taken, Elias stared out at the alien night sky. He didn't know if he was a prisoner or a guest, but he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had changed forever, and somehow, he was at the center of it, and somewhere in the silence between stars, an ancient power had awakened, watching the strange bond between a queen and a human begin to form. The next morning, the galaxy had not calmed down. Reports, transmissions, and angry messages poured into the Imperial network from every direction. The Alien Council of Trade threatened to suspend alliances. Military commanders demanded explanations, and rival empires started to gather fleets near the Zalari borders. In the palace, servants moved quietly through the long, glowing corridors, afraid to speak the human's name aloud. Some called him the Chosen. Others whispered, the Queen's madness. The guards treated him with cold distance but careful respect, because the Queen herself had said he belonged to her protection. Captain Elias Kane was given a private room in the upper towers of the palace. The chamber was large and filled with alien light that shifted colors softly like breathing. Strange birds of crystal sang from tall cages. He had food that looked beautiful but tasted strange, and he often stood by the wide transparent wall, staring out at the stars beyond. He had been through battlefields and seen death, but this calm silence in the heart of his enemy's empire, felt even heavier. Every corner of the palace seemed to watch him. Then one evening the Queen came. The door opened without sound and she entered, dressed not in armor or crown, but in a simple silver robe. She looked different like that. Not a ruler, not a goddess, just a woman made of starlight. You look uncomfortable, she said softly. I don't belong here, he answered, not turning away from the stars. And yet, she said, stepping closer, you are here because I willed it. Elias looked at her reflection in the glass. Why me? What do you see in a soldier who lost his ship? She moved beside him, her gaze fixed on the night. In the old wars, she said, there was a race who stood against the darkness without hope of victory. They were small, fragile, and young, but they did not kneel. We called them Deathworlders. I see that same fire in you. He frowned slightly. Humans are no legends, Your Majesty. We just survive, that's all. Sarathra turned to him. And yet survival is the hardest thing to achieve in the void. There was silence between them. filled only by the hum of the palace shields. For a moment, Elias thought she might actually smile. Then a message arrived, a faint pulse from her wrist device. She read it quickly, and the faint softness vanished from her face. "They are already moving," she whispered. "Who?" Elias asked. "The High Council," she said. "Some generals believe I've gone too far. They are gathering ships. They will try to force me to undo my words. And will you?" Her silver eyes turned hard. "Never." Outside, storms of light rolled over the skies of her world as the empire began to shift. The next day, the throne hall was filled again. Generals, admirals, and counselors knelt before the queen, demanding she reconsider. The chamber vibrated with tension. "You endanger the empire for a single creature," said General Vorn, his deep voice booming. "Your mercy toward the human weakens us. Already, border fleets refuse orders." Sarathra sat upon her throne, calm and unmoving. "Then they will learn obedience." "Your Majesty," said another noble, "our people are uneasy. They think you are bewitched. Some call him a spy sent to destroy us from within." "If they fear a single man," she replied, "perhaps their loyalty was never real." The council erupted again, words and anger colliding like thunder, but when she raised her hand, all sound died. "The human will stay," she said firmly, "and anyone who moves against him moves against me." The generals exchanged glances. They bowed, but their eyes were full of quiet fury. Later that night, Elias was walking through one of the inner gardens when he noticed shadows moving among the trees. Before he could react, 2 alien soldiers stepped out, their weapons pointed at him. "You are not welcome here," one hissed. "She may protect you now, but her favor fades quickly. Humans don't belong among the stars." Elias stayed still, his mind racing. "You're breaking her command," he said slowly. The second soldier sneered. "Commands end when she falls asleep." They stepped closer, and then light exploded around them. A sharp hum cut through the air, and the soldiers dropped their weapons, frozen by a field of blue energy. From the shadows walked the Queen's personal guard, led by Commander Thalran, a tall alien with steel-colored skin. "The Queen said he is under her protection," Thalran said coldly. "Disobey again, and your families will remember your names in disgrace." The soldiers bowed in terror and ran. Elias exhaled slowly. Thalran turned to him. "They fear you," the commander said quietly. "They think your presence will destroy the balance of our empire." "Maybe they're right," Elias said. "I never asked for this." "Neither did the Queen," Thalran replied. "But she never takes what she cannot control. If she chose you, she sees purpose in it." He paused. "Do not waste that chance." The next days passed in restless silence. Elias tried to learn more about the alien world. He watched their cities, tall towers of glass and light, ships flying like silver arrows, streets where creatures of 100 kinds moved in peace under the Queen's rule. It was strange and beautiful, and yet everywhere he went, whispers followed him. In the council halls, plans were being drawn in secret. Some nobles wanted to remove the Queen's authority. Others wanted to use the human as bait to prove she had grown weak. The Queen knew. She could feel the storm building, but she did not bend. One evening, she called Elias to her private observatory, a great glass dome above the clouds filled with maps of stars and drifting holograms. She stood there, gazing at a burning cluster of red suns. "Your people are bold," she said softly. "They build colonies near systems long abandoned by others. I have studied their history. They rise again and again from ruin. We have no choice," Elias said. "The universe never gave us much. So we take what we can and hold it until someone stronger comes along." She turned to him. "That strength is what terrifies the other empires. Not your weapons, not your numbers. Your will to stand." He met her eyes. "And you, Your Majesty, what do you stand for?" She looked at the stars again. "For peace that cannot exist, for power that must be earned, and for truth, even if it hurts." The air shimmered as a communication alert appeared before her. A fleet icon blinked red. "They are coming," she said quietly. "Who?" "My own generals. They have joined with outsiders. They mean to force my abdication, and they plan to kill you first." Elias stared at her. "Then let me fight." She raised a brow. "You against fleets? I was a pilot before I was your prisoner," he said. "And I won't hide while people die because of me." For the first time, she looked almost surprised, and then she nodded slowly. "Very well. You will have a ship." Within hours, the palace was in motion. Defense fields activated, sky cannons turned toward the heavens, and the Queen's loyal fleet formed ranks around her world. Elias was taken to the royal hangar, where alien engineers worked in silence around a sleek fighter unlike anything he had ever seen. "This craft responds to neural commands," one of them explained. "It was built for the Queen's champions. It will fly as you will it." Elias climbed into the cockpit. The controls lit beneath his touch, adapting instantly to his human mind. It was as if the ship itself recognized him. From the command bridge, the Queen watched his craft rise into the night. "He fights for you now," Thalrin said quietly. "No," she answered. "He fights for what he believes in. That is what makes him dangerous." As the first rebel ships entered orbit, fire lit the skies. Fleets clashed, energy beams slicing through the dark like rivers of light. Elias led a wing of royal fighters, weaving through enemy lines with skill that shocked even the alien pilots. His instincts, his unpredictable moves, and his refusal to retreat turned the tide again and again. On the ground, the palace trembled from distant impacts. The Queen stood tall in her throne room, issuing calm orders, her voice never shaking. When the main rebel dreadnought broke through the line, Elias dove straight toward it. The enemy locked weapons on him, but he kept flying, pushing the craft beyond limits. Alarms screamed, heat filled the cockpit, but he didn't stop. He aimed for the ship's power core and released a single plasma charge. The explosion split the sky in half. When the smoke cleared, the rebel fleet was retreating. The battle was over. In the aftermath, Elias's fighter was found drifting, its systems dead. He was unconscious but alive. The Queen herself went to see him in the med chamber. She stood over him quietly, her expression unreadable. "You risked everything," she said softly, "for people not your own." His voice was weak but steady. "Because freedom doesn't belong to one world?" She watched him for a long time. "Perhaps," she whispered, "this is why the galaxy fears you humans." Outside, the Empire was shaken but safe. Inside the palace, something far more dangerous had begun. Trust between a queen and a human that neither of them fully understood. The palace was quiet after the battle, but that quiet carried weight. Broken ships still drifted in orbit like ghosts, and across the Empire, cities whispered about what had happened. A single human pilot had fought beside their queen and saved them all. In the lower halls of the capital, the workers left small lights burning in his honor. To them, the human had become a strange legend. The alien queen's chosen protector, the man who flew into fire when others fled. But in the upper chambers, not everyone celebrated. Behind locked doors, nobles and generals met in secret, their faces cold, their voices full of anger. "The Queen has changed," one said. "She trusts the alien more than her council. She defies our traditions," another growled. "A human commanding our ships? It is madness." General Vorn, who had once challenged her openly, leaned forward. "Madness spreads if left unchecked. She will not step down, but there are other ways to end this." His eyes gleamed with quiet threat. While they plotted, Elias slowly recovered. His injuries were deep, but the alien medics worked with calm precision. He lay in a soft-lit chamber surrounded by strange instruments that hummed like distant stars. Every now and then, he would see the Queen standing near the doorway, silent, watching him. One morning when he opened his eyes, she was there again. "You shouldn't be here," he said weakly. "This is my palace," she replied softly. "I go where I wish." He tried to sit up. "Then you should be ruling. The people need you. They have me," she said. "And they have you." "Me?" He frowned. "I'm no ruler. I'm just a soldier who crashed in the wrong place." She stepped closer, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "You stood against fleets. You refused to kneel. Now even my enemies whisper your name. They call you the Fearless One." He gave a small, bitter laugh. "Fearless?" I was terrified. I just didn't have time to show it. She looked at him for a moment, then smiled slightly. "That is what courage truly is." They stood in silence for a while. Through the wide window, the stars shimmered beyond the shields. "Do you regret saving us?" she asked suddenly. "No," he said. "I regret that people had to die, but I'd do it again." She nodded slowly. "You remind me of what leadership once meant. Not power, not control, but faith." He met her gaze. "Faith can be dangerous. So can truth," she said quietly. That evening, the palace lights dimmed to a soft twilight glow. The Queen walked alone through the garden paths, her mind heavy with thoughts. She had ruled longer than most civilizations had existed, But this feeling, this uncertainty, was new. She had faced rebellions, invasions, and assassins, yet none of it had shaken her as much as the thought of losing the strange human who had become both her defiance and her reflection. Far away, the secret council made its move. Messages were sent in coded signals. Bribes were offered to fleet commanders. And deep in the palace, a trusted guard placed a silent device inside the Queen's communication core. A device that would send her location to those who wanted her throne. The next day began quietly. Elias was finally allowed to walk through the palace again. He still moved slowly, his strength not yet fully back, but his eyes were alert. Everywhere he went, aliens bowed slightly or stepped aside. He didn't understand their customs, so he simply nodded back. As he passed a corridor lined with glowing murals, he noticed a young attendant dropping a tray of data crystals. He bent to help her. "Thank you, human," she said nervously. "They told us not to speak to you." He smiled faintly. "They tell me not to speak to anyone, too. Seems fair." She hesitated. "Some in the court say the Queen is in danger." His expression changed. "What do you mean?" "There are whispers," she said softly. "Ships gathering at the edge of the system. They say an order was given to remove her before the next dawn." Before he could ask more, she hurried away, afraid to be seen. He turned immediately and went to find the Queen. She was in the war chamber, standing before a holographic star map. Bright dots marked her fleets, each one pulsing like a heartbeat. When he entered, she looked up, sensing the urgency in his face. "What is it?" "Your life," he said simply. "Someone inside is betraying you." Her gaze sharpened. "How do you know?" "An attendant warned me." "Ships are moving. Someone plans to strike tonight." For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the map. Then she turned toward her guard commander. "Seal the palace. Find who leaks our signals." "Yes, my queen," Thalrin said and rushed out. She looked back at Elias. "You should leave this place." "They want me, not you. They'll kill anyone near you," he replied. "I'm not leaving." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. There was something in his voice, a quiet, unbreakable certainty. As night fell, the storm came. Through the outer shields, the rebel fleet appeared, hundreds of ships glowing red against the black. They moved silently, their drives masked until the last second. Explosions tore across the defense grid. Inside the palace, alarms screamed. The Queen's guards took positions, energy rifles ready. Elias grabbed a sidearm from a fallen soldier and joined them. The halls filled with smoke and light as the attack began. Serathra stood in the throne chamber, calm amid the chaos. She wore no crown now, only armor of living metal that shaped itself around her form. Her voice was steady as she gave commands. "Activate the planetary shield core," she ordered, "and prepare the evacuation paths for civilians." Her eyes flicked toward Elias. "You will guard the command deck." He shook his head. "Not without you." She wanted to argue again, but something in his gaze stopped her. She nodded once. "Then we stand together." The battle inside the palace raged for hours. Corridors turned into fire tunnels. Alien rebels clashing with the Queen's loyal guards. Elias fought with quick, precise movements, covering her flank as they moved through the smoke. In the distance, explosions painted the sky in colors of blue and silver. Her flagship, the Vigilant Star, was holding the upper orbit, but the enemy had numbers. At one point they reached the main control spire and found General Vorn waiting. His armor was scorched, his eyes filled with bitter pride. "You could have been eternal, my queen," he said, "but you threw away your empire for a human." "I saved my empire from coward," she replied, "and from those who mistake fear for loyalty." Vorn raised his weapon. "Then die for your faith." Before he could fire, Elias stepped forward, pulling the trigger of his blaster. The shot hit Vorn's arm, sending the weapon flying. Vorn lunged, striking with inhuman strength. Elias dodged, rolled, and came up with his weapon again. They fought among the shattered consoles, sparks flying. Elias was fast, but Vorn was stronger. He slammed Elias against a pillar, raising a blade to strike. And then the Queen moved. A beam of white light burst from her wrist gauntlet, striking Vorn square in the chest. He froze, light blazing through his armor, and then fell. The chamber went silent except for their breathing. "He was one of my oldest commanders," she said softly. "He made his choice," Elias answered. Outside, the rebel fleet began to fall apart as loyal ships retook control. Their codes had been broken, their leaders defeated. The skies cleared slowly, the fires fading. As dawn rose over the alien world, the Queen stood on the palace balcony, watching the light spread across her city. Elias stood beside her, tired but alive. Below, the crowds began to gather, cheering her name. When she raised her hand, silence spread through them. "My people," she said, her voice carrying through the amplifiers. "We have faced betrayal and fire, but we endure, not because of blood, not because of fear, but because of unity. We will rebuild. We will rise again." Her words rolled across the capital like thunder, and for the first time in ages, the Empire felt hope. As the crowd roared again, she turned slightly toward Elias. "You have changed them," she said. "No," he said. "You did. Perhaps," she whispered. "We both did." From that day, stories spread beyond her empire. Tales of the human who fought for an alien queen reached every corner of the galaxy. On distant worlds, soldiers repeated his name like a promise. The galaxy had not seen peace yet, but something new had begun, a fragile thread of understanding between races that had once only known war, and in the heart of it stood two figures who refused to bow, and a queen of stars and the human she had called hers. Weeks passed after the battle, and the Empire slowly began to heal. The smoke over the cities cleared. The broken ships were gathered, and the wounded were cared for in shining halls filled with quiet light. The Queen's flag, the silver crest of the Zilari, once again flew over every world that had doubted her. But this victory had changed everything. The human had become more than a guest. He had become a symbol. People spoke his name in the marketplaces, in the barracks, even in the outer colonies where the Queen's authority had once been feared but never loved. The human's courage had reminded them of something ancient, the idea that loyalty could be chosen, not demanded. Inside the palace, Elias walked freely now. Guards saluted him not out of fear but respect. Even the nobles who once whispered against him now bowed, their voices careful. The rebellion had shown them the Queen's will was unshakable, and that the human she claimed was not her weakness, but her strength. One morning, as light spilled across the grand courtyard, Elias found the Queen standing by the fountains. The air shimmered faintly with the scent of alien blossoms. She turned as he approached. "You look well, Captain," she said. "I heal faster than I expected," he answered. "Your doctors are better than ours." "Our doctors are older," she said with a faint smile. "Time teaches more than genius." He nodded, glancing at the horizon where the defense towers glowed faintly. "The people talk about you," he said. "And about me." "They always talk," she replied calmly. "The important thing is what they believe." "And what do they believe now?" he asked. She looked toward the rising sun. "They believe in hope again." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she turned to him, her voice softer. "You could return to your world if you wished. The path is open. The war between us is over." He looked at her, uncertain. "Is that what you want?" Her eyes held his. "It is what I must offer. You have earned that choice." He was silent for a moment, then said, "I don't know if Earth would recognize me anymore. I've changed." "So have I," she whispered. They stood there together as the twin suns climbed higher, their light touching the palace walls like gold on glass. That same day, messages began to arrive from other empires. Ambassadors requested meetings. Some offered peace, others demanded answers. The declaration that had once shocked the galaxy, that human is mine, now echoed as both a warning and a promise. In the High Council chamber, the Queen met with her advisors. Elias stood behind her silently, observing. A holographic map filled the center of the room, showing shifting alliances and borders. "The Dravari seek negotiation," Thalrin said, "but they demand proof that the humans' influence will not extend beyond our worlds." "They fear what they do not understand," the Queen said. Another noble spoke. "They say the human commands your will, my Queen, that his species now holds power over yours." Her gaze turned cold. "Then they are fools. No being commands me. He stands beside me, not above me." Elias listened quietly. He didn't like being the reason for so much unrest, but he understood it. Across the stars, power was shifting. For the first time in centuries, strength was no longer measured only by bloodlines or technology. It was measured by the courage to see others as equals. After the council ended, he followed her through the corridors. "They'll never stop fearing me," he said. "Perhaps," she said, "but fear fades. What endures is respect. And if they never respect me, then they will learn from you," she replied simply. That night, as the twin moons rose, a quiet moment came. The Queen stood at her observatory again, the same place where she once told him of ancient wars. She looked at the stars. endless, shining, and cold. Elias entered without announcement. "You still can't sleep?" he asked. "Sleep comes rarely to rulers," she said. Too many voices whisper in the dark. He stepped beside her. "You built peace from the ruins of rebellion. You deserve rest." "Peace is never built," she said. "It is borrowed for as long as hearts remain brave." She turned slightly, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Tell me, human, what drives your people to fight so hard for life?" He thought for a moment. "Because it's short. Because we know it ends. Every breath could be the last, so we make it matter." She studied him silently. "And if life were endless? Then we'd still find something to fight for," he said quietly. "Maybe something like this. I'm standing under alien skies trying to understand someone who should have been my enemy." Her gaze lingered on him for a long time. "You are unlike any being I have known. That's what makes humans dangerous," he said with a faint smile. "We change everything we touch." "Including me," she whispered. Before either could speak again, an urgent signal blinked across the room. "A transmission. Priority Alpha." Thalrin's voice filled the air. "My queen, we have detected an incoming vessel near the outer orbit. It carries no Empire code. It is transmitting only one word: Earth." Elias felt his pulse quicken. "Open a channel," she ordered. The hologram flickered, revealing a face. Human, wearing the uniform of the Earth Fleet. "This is Commander Avery of the United Systems Alliance," the figure said. "We have come for our missing officer, Captain Elias Kane." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Your missing officer is under my protection." "With respect, Your Majesty," the commander said carefully. "Earth demands his return. We thank you for saving him, but humanity must decide its own." Elias stepped forward. "Commander," but the Queen raised her hand. "This man is not a possession," she said coldly. "He is free to choose." The commander's expression softened. "Then let him choose." The screen faded, leaving silence. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Elias said quietly, "So it comes to this. Your people want you home," she said. "And what if I don't want to go?" She looked at him with something unreadable in her eyes. "Then they will call you lost. And I will call you found." The next day, the Queen prepared to meet the human envoy face to face. The grand landing court filled with guards and officials. Elias stood beside her, feeling a strange ache in his chest. He had dreamed of returning home, but now the thought felt distant, like a memory fading under starlight. The human shuttle descended in silence, its engines glowing faintly blue. Commander Avery stepped out, followed by 2 officers. He saluted sharply. "Captain Kane," he said, "you've caused quite a storm." "Seems I have a talent for that," Elias said lightly. The Queen's voice broke the tension. "He is no longer a prisoner of war. He is a citizen of honor in my realm. Earth recognizes that," the commander said carefully. "But our council believes his knowledge, his experiences, could help shape peace between our worlds. The Alliance offers cooperation, not conflict." The Queen studied him for a long time. "Peace built on understanding?" "Yes," the commander said. "On trust." She turned to Elias. "Then perhaps the time has come for you to return." He looked at her, the ruler who had once called him hers, who had defied an empire for him. "And if I go?" "Then the stars will remember," she said softly. "And so will I." The silence stretched between them like the distance between galaxies. Finally he nodded. "I'll go, but not as a soldier. As a bridge." She inclined her head. "Then go, Bridge of Worlds." The humans and aliens watched as he stepped toward the shuttle. Before he entered, he turned back one last time. She stood beneath the twin suns, her silver eyes bright, her gown moving in the soft wind. Their gazes met, and no words were needed. The shuttle rose slowly, carrying him into the sky. As it vanished into the clouds, the Queen whispered to herself, "He was mine, not to own but to remember." Months later, across both human and alien space, new treaties were signed. Joint colonies were planned. Fleets that once faced each other now trained side by side. And at the center of it all, 2 names were always spoken together: the alien queen who defied her empire, and the human who changed her heart. Some said it began as a declaration of power. Others said it was destiny. But those who understood whispered the truth, that in a galaxy full of empires and war, it took one human to remind them all what courage and connection could mean. And so, When travelers spoke under the stars, they often ended their tales with the same line. The alien queen declared, "That human is mine," and the galaxy was never the same again.